What's up, Buttercups? It's Kaylee. Thank you for joining me. Today, I'm going to be telling you the truth about these extremely popular sci-fi books. Are they overhyped? Are they worth the hype? Should you read them? Should you not? Today, I'm going to let you know. So without further ado, grab your coffee and let's get into it. I actually read on Kindle, so I don't have the physical copy. It is in the mail currently, and it didn't make it to this video. But this first book is Red Rising by Pierce Brown. This is set in a corrupt future society where humanity has expanded to all the different planets within the solar system and are now separated by different colors to determine their social statuses and their jobs. Our main character, Darrow, is part of the lowest class of Reds, whose job is to mine materials on Mars for the surrounding planets and colors. After a series of unfortunate events, Darrow finds himself in a terrorist group whose sole purpose is to corrupt the elite golds from within.
Gentlemen, the terrorists appear to have complete control of our imagination. It's only a matter of time before our imaginations start running wild.
So in order to blend in with these golds and not get caught in his mission, he has to undergo an extreme physical transformation. After this transformation, he is sent to an institute for golds where they are tested in order to see if they're good enough to be put into something called the Passage. The Passage is like a Hunger Games type deal where they go into this wilderness landscape and they're separated by different houses and have to compete against each other to see who comes out on top. Whoever comes out on top is going to be the most highest social status and highest ranking. Very Hunger Games vibes, very Lord of the Flies vibes. There's a lot of things that I felt that could have been shown rather than explained if it hadn't have been written the way it was written. Initially, I was extremely excited about this book because I had heard from several verified YouTubers that it was going to be an amazing book.
Book is crazy. I love it.
But to me, I was expecting more intergalactic Hunger Games, and instead, in my opinion, what I got was a pretty lackluster Hunger Games. Hunger Games was actually a better written book, a better action book, a better visual book. I honestly would recommend the Hunger Games 10 million times over reading this book.
700 billion and $1,300,000,000,000.
But this book to me was just so very boring. I struggled the whole entire way to read it. Everything in me wanted to DNF it, but I knew I had to finish it for this video specifically. So I powered through it, even though it was very difficult to do. Just so I come here and tell you that I do not think it is worth the hype. It is definitely overhyped in my opinion. If you are a sci-fi lover and you love the Hunger Games, you could give it a shot. If I had to give this book an overall rating out of 5 stars, would definitely be around 2.5 to 3. I really just did not like reading this book. It took me forever, and whenever a book is physically hard for me to read, it's not going to get a good star rating. But I would not waste your time or your money reading this book. The Hunger Games overall is just a much better book. I would definitely recommend that over this book. The next book that we have is Ender's Game. This is set in a future world where Earth has been underneath attack from aliens called buggers for over 100 years. This is following our main character, 6-year-old Ender Wiggins, who is an extremely advanced child. Ender is chosen to go to battle school where he is trained to be the next general over the army against the alien fleet. In this battle school, Ender encounters several challenges, not only from his teachers pushing him to the absolute limits, but also from his peers that are constantly picking on him and bullying him because he just succeeds in everything that he does. Eventually, Ender exceeds battle school and gets sent to commander school.
I'm ready. Promotion. I'm ready.
Where he trains further in his mission to become the next general and does several simulations.
Ozone layer.
Fighting against the aliens. So the general premise of this book is Ender is training to be the world's next hero. This book to me I felt like had such great potential, but the execution was not done well. The whole thing to me just kind of felt really unrealistic. Now I know it's supposed to be unrealistic because it's a sci-fi book, but to me this book was so unrealistic that it just made it not an enjoyable book. I wasn't like, transported to this world where this could be a possibility and this would be something that could possibly happen. There is no such 6-year-old in the entire universe, even light years from now, that is going to be so advanced that he just is going to be the world's savior. Like, out of all the other people in the world, 6-year-old Ender Wiggins is the guy. Like, no. Now, I have not seen the movie. I know there is a movie to this, and I do plan on watching that movie, and maybe it'll make me appreciate the book better.
So I did watch the movie, and it was also garbage, and was a waste of $3. 10 out of 10 do not recommend.
If I had to give it a rating out of 5 stars, this book for me was definitely a 3. It was a shorty, so it wasn't too hard to get through and read, but it was so short that I should have been able to fly through it, and instead it still took me the normal time that it would take me to read something this big. This book took me close to about 5-6 hours. Should have taken me maybe 3. If you're not that big of a reader and you just read occasionally, you might like this book. But if you're a really advanced reader and you read constantly and you like books that just grasp your attention and challenge you, this is not the book for that. I believe this is a YA book, so I believe it's supposed to be geared more towards children. But honestly, even if I was a child, I probably would have not enjoyed this book. So for those reasons, I would say it is extremely overhyped and not worth the read. How surprising to see Dune on here, only the most popular sci-fi book of all time. This is by far the most popular book on today's science fiction list. In a very, very shortened summary of this book, this is following main character young Paul Atreides, who is moved from his home planet Caladan by the Emperor to the desert planet of Arrakis, where his family will oversee the very highly valued spice trade. On the extremely hostile desert planet, Paul is not only faced with challenges from the native Fremen, but also from the previous spice overseers, the Harkonnens, and all around just sabotage and betrayal. While on this planet, Paul has a spiritual journey where he now feels it's his destiny to change Arrakis and the universe for the better. This book has an extremely dense storyline. It is not only switching constantly from multiple POVs, but it is also switching to different places in the storyline. So one minute you'll be with Paul and his mother, the next minute you will be over with the Harkonnens, and it will tell a completely different story. It will also switch from where it's talking from the inside of Paul's thoughts to where it's now telling the story from the entire point of view of a third person.
At least I'm safe inside my mind.
At least I'm safe inside my mind.
I know this is one of the most popular sci-fi books of all time, and there are several cult followings for this book. But me personally, with all the hype that was surrounded by this book, and with the movies just coming out, I was so beyond excited for this book. And whenever I got it, I first bought it on book. I tried reading it. It was so hard to read. Couldn't do it, so I thought, I'm just gonna buy it on Kindle, and maybe it'll be easier for me to read like that. So I bought it on Kindle. Still, it was like drinking mud, and then I was like, you know what, I have to finish this book. So I bought the audiobook. Even though it was dramatized and it had different people reading the book, still, even the audiobook was just so unbelievably hard for me to get through.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine, and you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it.
For that reason, I would say that this book was extremely overhyped. I know I'm probably the only person in the entire universe who has this opinion, because everybody and their mother loves Dune, but me personally, I did not like this book whatsoever. I will definitely never ever be reading another sequel to Dune, or Dune for that matter, ever again. I will say though, I did watch the movie before I even thought about picking up the book, and whenever I watched the movie, I was so extremely confused. So was my husband. I mean, we were watching this movie, and we were like, what is even going on here?
What the fuck is going on in here on this day?
And after reading the book, it definitely made a ton more sense, and I had a lot more respect for the movie because it was really well done compared to the book, because the movie to me was just chaos and the storyline didn't really make any sense or context. But whenever you read the book and then you go and you watch the movie, you're like, oh wow, that totally was exactly how I imagined it in the book. That was done so well. So I'm really torn on that. I love the movie, to be honest. Now that I've read the book, I have such high respects for it, but the book itself, This is one of the rare occasions where I say the movie is better than the book. Now, I know the movie's only been released for part 1 of Dune, and part 2 is coming out soon, so I'm super excited to see that movie because the movie is going to have to do a lot of things that are in the second latter half of this book that I don't even know how they're going to do. At some points in the book, I will say that it was written so well that I felt like I was in the desert of Arrakis. I was super dehydrated, the sun beating down on my face, but then a lot of times I was just like, oh my god, I cannot wait to put this book away and never ever read it again. But again, I felt more bad and like I hated it more than I felt for the small part that it was good. So for those reasons, I would say an overall star rating for this book out of 5 would definitely be a 2. I honestly cannot stand his writing style. This was not my peanut butter jelly. This was mud, dirt, chaos, pain, sorrow, horrible. Never ever ever will I ever read this again. Okie doke. So the next extremely popular sci-fi book that I have on today's list is going to be Scythe. This is set in a world where war, famine, disease, hunger are no longer issues. Government's not even a thing anymore. It is all replaced and fixed by an artificial intelligence called the Thunderhead. Because there is no more of these normal issues that would cause death, the issue of overpopulation is still very present. Because there is still that issue of overpopulation, the Scythes have been created. Their job is to go around and decide who and when and how people will die. So that way the world doesn't become overpopulated. That is the one thing that the AI cannot control. So this book follows 2 main characters, Sintra and Roman, who are chosen by Scythe to be Scythe apprentices.
Hey, do you wanna...
Fuck, I have a lisp. I can't just say Rice Krispies treats out loud.
Blue bar?
Sintra and Roman do not want this fate. They are devastated that they have been chosen this life. But unfortunately, there is no telling a Scythe no whenever you are chosen to be an apprentice. So Sintra and Rowan have to go around now and master the art of killing. And they are forced to realize the several imperfections of their perfect world. This book is the first book on this list that I would say it is worth the hype. This book was so captivating. It honestly is one of my top favorite books. It's why I wanted to do this video, honestly, to begin with, because this was the first ever science fiction book that I read, and I actually loved this book. It was so good. I wish I could go back and read it for the first time. I will say that this book is not one that, unfortunately, the love continued throughout the entire series. The other 2 books, I did not finish the 3rd book, and halfway through the 2nd book, I DNF'd it as well. So overall, if I was rating the series altogether, I would say it's at a solid 3, but if I'm rating this book by itself, I would say this book is a 4.5. If you were going to pick any of the books out of this video to read, this would be the one that I would suggest you read. To me, this one was 100% worth the hype. It was just so well written, and I would highly recommend that you pick this one up. So the last book that we have today is The Midnight Library. This book is following depressed main character Nora Seed, who unfortunately attempts to take her life. Instead of meeting death, though, she is brought to the Midnight Library. Within this library, there are endless books, and each book that she picks up and she reads will transport her into a life that she could choose to stay and live.
I've never seen so many books in all my life.
Any possible life that Nora thinks of where she wishes that she had done something differently, there is a book for that type of life that she's imagining. While Nora is reading different books and transported into different lives to find her perfect one that she chooses to stay in, the library ultimately starts crumbling and she has no idea why and has to figure out a life that she wants to live before it's too late and everything comes to an end. This book was extremely interesting to me. I loved the idea of Nora getting to be transported into any life that she could possibly imagine and experiencing those different lives where she was all these different things, and I loved following her on that journey. This book, I will say, it did not end the way that I wanted it to end, though the ending definitely makes sense to the overall storyline. I had not personally seen this recommended by anybody specifically, but I had seen this book everywhere on TikTok. I had seen it in every single Walmart on all the shelves, and I just kept seeing it. It kept jumping out at me, so I picked it up, and I realized after picking it up that it was not a romance book. It was indeed a sci-fi book, and I was definitely pleasantly surprised. I took a whim, and it was so good. So honestly, this book is also worth the hype. Okay, so sorry I look like this, but I gotta be honest with you. I was editing that video and it is not a solid 4-star. It was definitely more of a 2.5, maybe a 3. I do not know why I gave it such a high rating. It's about a week later after I read those books, and it is not good. It definitely had so much potential. It was such a cool concept, very poor execution. Several times throughout the book that I was super bored. The ending did not end how I wanted it to end. So I don't know if I was just on crack on that video or what.
Is this a 5 o'clock free crack giveaway?
But me to give it a 4-star is absolutely crazy. Looking back, I think I was just absolutely so miserable from reading those books all week that that book was the lesser of evil, and so I just hyped it up. The cover is beautiful, yes, but the book is not good. Out of all the books that you could go and get, do not get that book. I'm sure there's so many other better sci-fi books. Again, I'm so sorry about this camera quality and the way it looks and how I look right now. I just have to get this video out, but I was editing that video and I was like, I gotta come on there and be honest because I don't want that to be my brand. People think that that's my taste in books because that is not a 4-star from me.
It's definitely a no for me, dog. The voice is just not there.
I would skip that book. Definitely not worth the hype. Absolutely not worth the hype. I was way too kind about Dune. Dune was absolute garbage. Dune is not it. Dune is my demise. Looking back, I absolutely hate that book. Honestly, the worst book that I've read ever, and I will never read it again. Honestly, don't get any of the books in this video, especially not Dune, but don't get any of the books in this video besides Scythe. That book is good. I do stick to what I said about that book. It is a good book, but the other books, no. Yeah, I had to be honest because that's just not my brand. It's not how I want people to be like, oh, that's her taste in books. It's not my taste in books. I was wrong. No, it's not a 4. Not a 4. So just had to come in here and say that. If I had to give it a star rating out of 5, I would say this is a solid 4. It was so good. It did live up to the hype. Like I said, I picked it up thinking it was a romance book, not even reading the cover or anything to see what it was, just saw that it was cute and it had been everywhere, so I picked it up and was so pleasantly surprised. This book made me not utterly hate science fiction.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
You lie. You lie.
It's a quick read. It's not too thick of a book. The cover is beautiful. So if you're thinking about getting this book, go ahead and get it. I don't think you'll regret it. So this concludes my review of these extremely popular science fiction books and if I think that they are worth the hype or if they are overhyped. As always, thank you for drinking coffee, hanging out with me, talking about bookies. Before you know it, I'll be back. Until next time. Ew. Is that a freaking bug? Why can't I just describe a book normally? Okay, they were spice. They were the spice overseers. The word is overseers. The word you're looking for is overseers. I'm not even kidding. I've filmed this video like 8 days in a row. Like, I'm this close to not even filming this video.